I don't know, take 27, not sure. Howdy everybody, it's Strongbow. This is going to be a Locksport video, but there will be no lock picking today. Instead, I'm going to talk about this Kwikset lock. This is a Kwikset so-called smart key system, but I'm not even going to be talking about the lock part, because this is about a couple of photos, well, a photo I posted in the Locksport groups on Facebook yesterday and on my own wall. Do they call it a wall anymore? My own timeline? Whatever. I posted about how I had to reassemble the lock on my back door yesterday because it was sticking and I had to take it apart to fix it. And I figured I'd shoot this video to show what was going on. The problem had nothing to do with the lock. The lock worked perfectly. Still works perfectly. This is not that lock. This is a brand new lock. It's the same model. The one on the door is a smart key lock. It's the exact same model. The only difference is this one is new. That one has been on the door for I don't know how long. The house is 20 years old. I don't know how long that model of lock has been around. It could be original to the house. It could have been replaced 3 years ago. My wife and I have owned the house for about 2 years. It has been rekeyed since we moved in, but otherwise the only difference between that and this is that it has however many years of Texas weathering, so this looks faded and weathered and so on, and I put that back on because I wanted it to match the rest of the hardware on the door that had the same amount of weathering. This is the bit that was originally on the door, as is this bolt. The problem wasn't this either, but I had to break this to get the thumb turn off so that I could get this plate off, which is a purely decorative plate. You notice there's no screw holes through here. I had to get that off in order to get at the screws. How they designed that, because I don't know how how you even originally installed that on the door without, you know. At any rate, so I had to break that off so that I could get at this to take these two bolts out to get at the bolt through the door, and it'll just give me a minute here to take these out. And once I did that, I was able to shove the shaft here through. Well, take that plate off, of course. Shove the shaft here through and knock the outside portion off the door, leaving this bolt. And the problem was that we couldn't open the door. The shaft wouldn't turn to open the door. I'm going to just take this back, stick it back in here because it's easier to demonstrate that way. And put the thumb turn back on. Well, the problem is, this is how it's mounted in the door. And no matter how much we turned this, you could turn and turn and turn and twist, and it would just not open, because it's doing exactly as I'm doing right now. What was happening is the bolt, after it would lock, something was causing this bolt to move back. And if you see how this works, this shaft through here turns this cam right here. That cam comes up through this slot in the back of the bolt. And there it just demonstrated what was happening, because I'm holding it vertically, so gravity was pulling the bolt backward. So I don't know what's causing it to happen in the door when it's horizontal, because there's no gravity pulling it that way. But basically, you'd lock it, and then the bolt would back up, just like that. Now that cam is behind this bit of metal here. And even Superman couldn't turn that open. Now, taking this back out, this is what I had in the door. And because this was lying on the ground outside, the only way to get it open was eventually pull forward on this far enough and then reach in here with a pick from my tool cabinet. This is something I use for Locksport purposes, but I had another pick. Actually, this probably would have worked better. I have another set of picks in my tool chest of a different type. But reach in through this hole to the back of this cam and push it up while this is pulled far enough forward that the cam could actually rise up through there, and then push that back until that opened up, and then I could get the door open and take this off. Well, this is what was originally in the door that was causing the problem, and this was actually the only part that I needed to replace. And I found out when I got to the hardware store, you can buy this separately. This is like $7.50, $8 to replace. I guess that's not an uncommon problem with Kwikset. So they sell these just all by themselves as a replacement part. What you can't get separately is this thumb turn. I had to replace it because this one was broken, and we needed to be able to open the door and lock it from the inside. And you can't buy this as a separate part. I had to buy a whole new lock to replace that, and that of course came with another one of these, and this outdoor hardware, and where did I set it? This lock. So I didn't need this. I just took these parts from the new lock and put them in the door, and then I put the old lock on there because that part, like I said, was working just fine. And then I just, I had to put the new thumb turn on. The new one, oddly enough, they've changed this design so that instead of having a decorative plate that goes over this plate, they've integrated the two into one piece. I don't know if it's a single piece and they just put the holes through here so that the holes go all the way through the whole thing now, or if they made this a single part that just looks like this. But the new one, those screw hole, where did I set them? These bolts are exposed on the inside surface of the door. Of course, they make the bolt heads the same color so that it matches and looks nice. I think this looks a little nicer, but I think one that goes through without having this plate over it, such that you have to break things off, is a better design. Like I said, I don't even know how this was installed, on how you get this on the door, because even if you know that all you have to do is get this plate off, this decorative plate out of the way to get at these, I don't know how you do that without breaking the thumb turn off. And I don't know how, I think I see how it's done now that I look at it. Is probably when it's installed, this spring here, which just went flying. No, even then I'm not sure, because there's a snap ring here that holds this portion of the thumb turn in place, and there's no way that you could have shoved that into the door after all of the, it's not like you can screw this in, snap this plate on, and then shove this through such that it snaps into place behind those springs. Maybe the spring that was across here, but not that snap ring. I have no idea how you would have gotten that in there. So I don't know what the process is to install this, but obviously it never comes off once you do. So the new design, yeah, they've got this just going through the plate. Anyway, that's what was going on with the door, and that's why, all the discussion on my timeline about, just take the lock to the hardware store and they could rekey it for me, etc., 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 was kind of pointless, because there was nothing wrong with this. And by the time I got in there to get at this, even if I didn't have to break anything, it was still the same amount of effort to get in there. I would have had to go through the same steps to get this out to install a new one, even if I didn't have to replace any of the other parts. Even if I just bought this part by itself and was able to fix it with that, would have still been the same process of disassembly. So, there was no having anybody fix it for me at the hardware store. They couldn't take it out of the door for me, and they certainly couldn't put this into the door for me. So, all of that said and done, because I had to buy a whole new lock, which was unfortunately about $35, whereas this is about less than $10, I do have one of these sitting around that I can attempt to pick and use for Locksport purposes. What I realized today, as I started getting all of my stuff together to film this video, I actually bought one a little over a year ago. It was a cheaper model because it's the polished brass, and you can see this is actually more cheaply made. It's a slightly different model, I guess. That's the one that goes on there, and this one goes behind here. And the inside the door hardware, this is what would have gone on the inside. So this would not have matched the other hardware mounted on the door, which is the same, what they call aged antique brass, whatever. So I could have replaced both that, and here's the bolt that came with this lock. I could have used these parts to replace it, but I'd forgotten I even had this at the time. This part's the same. So I guess I've got 3 of these now. I got the one that's in the door, I've got this one that came out of the door, and then this one that's the same as what's in the door, but that came with the other lock. This would have worked fine. Excuse me. Although now that I think about it, this plate here is also matches the rest of the hardware, but who cares? But since I had to replace the thumb turn, like I said, had I remembered I had this, I could have put this on the door, and alright, that wouldn't have matched, but I'd have lived with it. But I think I'm just as happy as having replaced that with matching hardware anyway. And this one I had bought specifically for Locksport purposes. That's this guy right here. I've actually never opened this one, not by picking it. So it'll be interesting to open these two. This one is not a smart key, this one is, and the one that's actually on the door is a smart key. So it'll be fun picking these. I might tear this one apart just to do a video on how that smart key system works. This one, once I get it opened, I'll do a gutting on it, just because I can. This one will be interesting to demonstrate how that smart key works. I have seen some videos on it, but not a lot. I've also got another one of these door locks that's of a different brand that I again bought for Locksport purposes. This one is called Faultless. It's like the house brand at Ace Hardware. I can't figure out what I did with the actual lock portion of it. It's sitting around here somewhere. But here's the thumb turn for inside the door. Here's the outside the door part. It's not quite compatible with Kwikset. It's like the same keyway, I think. But you can see the bolt is a different design. It more or less works the same way. You've got the cam that goes through here and pushes and pulls the bolt. But you can see the shaft that goes through the middle of the cam is shaped differently, so they're not compatible with each other. That also feels like it's spring loaded because you get to a certain point and it just, whereas these are not spring loaded. Anyway, that's what was going on with that lock. Hope everybody's having a fun and safe 4th of July, and I will be doing some new videos soon. I got an American lock. This is my newest acquisition. This one I have successfully picked, and I'll hopefully get that on camera soon. I've got another American lock I bought on eBay arriving, supposed to be tomorrow. And then another that says it's a USS Jonestown lock, but it's like USS Jonestown Erie Electric Company, something like that. I don't know what that's about, but it looks like an interesting lock, and I paid about the same as I paid for this, about $10. I got this Abus 7240 a few weeks ago. I've tried many hours to pick this one with no luck. I think the last video I did was on this Abus 7240, which I actually opened fairly easily, but then I had a gutting disaster with it, so I need to do some surgery to get this taken apart again so that I can be picking at it. This one has so far completely foiled any of my attempts to pick it. I got a second Master 410 that I have not successfully picked yet. I have another one that I did pick. This one I can't pick. And at the same time I got that Avis, I got a couple of Pacific Lock Company PL 410s, which is the pack lock version of the Master Lock. I've only taken one out of its package and completely failed to pick it so far. I think the Masters are 6 pins, although if I count this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This might be 7 pins, I'm not sure. If I look at the key for this is definitely a 7-pin lock. So I've got 2 pack locks, a Master 410, and an Avis, all in hand, none of which I've opened yet. I got this American Series 10 that I have opened, and 2 more locks on the way that I will hopefully won't give me too much trouble, although I hope they're at least enough of a challenge to be fun. And then I've still got some Euro locks that a kind gentleman from the UK sent me that I still haven't got open yet. So hopefully I'll get those open soon and shoot some videos on those. But otherwise, have fun everybody, stay safe.